All right, guys, today we are going to try to work out a grid drawing with the grid method of drawing. And I want to kind of give you an idea of what you might need for that, which would be a ruler. This is just a cheap plastic ruler. It costs about 25 cents. If you got a nicer one than that, awesome. If you got a yardstick, that works. I'm working inside of this because it's easy for me to kind of travel with right now, since I'm doing a lot of traveling, and I'm not sure what days I'm going to be in school and what days I'm not going to be here. So I want to make sure I can keep on kind of working with you guys even if I'm not here. But plastic ruler, a cheap plastic ruler, a piece of the drawing paper from our class is what you're really going to want. And then you need an image of some sort, right? So we have like Beyonce. Nope, nothing's on the back of that one. Some models. That's just shoes on the back of that. Here's another model. I've ripped these out of magazines. These are perfectly fine for working from, this kind of an idea. I took a lot of kind of darker images, some black and white ones. But you need a physical image, right? You need one that's like something you can hold. So, don't get an image that's just something that you can see on your phone or something. So if you have to print it out with a printer, print it out with a printer. If that's not the case and you don't want to print it out with a printer, then these are from magazines, old magazines. So if anybody's got old magazines or a calendar or something like that, I just ripped up some old magazines. These are probably 10 years old or more, might even been older than that, some of them. So just find an image that you want to draw, and I would suggest trying to get one that's pretty large, what I would call a full page image. These are, so that way when we go to kind of draw it, it'll be big on here as well, right? So that's what we're thinking about here, or what I'm thinking about here. All right. I don't know which one to draw. I kind of like that one. It's got some nice darks in there. I like some good darks. Okay, so what I'm first going to do is come up with the image I want to draw, and then once I have an image that I want to draw, I'm going to, I don't know, I'm kind of torn between that one and that one, but I'll stick with this one because it's got, well, maybe I'll do this one because it's got eyes, and maybe some of you guys will want to see me draw eyes. So. The other one's just, I really like that image though, but oh well, whatever. All right, so I'm going to take this image as my image, and over here I'm going to get an idea how big this image is here with a ruler. So I'm going to take my ruler out and I'm going to measure across, and according to this is just shy of 8 inches across, and I'm just going to go with 11 inches down, even though it's just a little bit shy of that. It's about 10 3/4. So over here, this is 9 by 12 size paper, so that ought to fit on there really, really well. So if I want to, I can give a little tiny bit of a border, let's say 1/2 inch, and then I can mark in, at my 8 here and at my 0, and then I'm going to go down the bottom of the page, and I'm basically going to do the same thing here. I'm going to mark in here. Oh, and try to get that straight. I'm marking this at the 1/2 inch mark here. So I'm giving a border of 1/2 inch all the way around, and I mark those in down there. And I'm going to flip my paper, right? And then I'm going to start to look down the other way. So 11 inches is where I'm going. So at 11.5 inches, because we're going to try to give a 1/2 inch border, I'm going to put that 11.5 on the edge of the paper there. And then up here, I'm going to mark the 0. And then I'm going to go over this way. I'm going to do the same thing over here. So this is really why you need to have a ruler, right? You definitely need a ruler for this, because in order to make a grid, you're going to need a ruler, right? So once I have that all in there, I can make these lines. Oh. I don't really need these lines to be really dark. It's just a parameter. In fact, later I'll probably want to erase them. So if I use a pretty light mark while I'm working here, that is better for me. Okay, so even though this doesn't look like it's a 1/2 inch border on here, it looks like it's over farther, you got to remember that that has that little perforated edge. So if I actually wanted to rip this out of there later on, this would have a perfect 1/2 inch border all the way around. And you know, whatever you're working with, I think is, you know, the measurements that you should try to get a decent border. If you're having some big problems with that, let me know. All right, so what I'm going to do here is mark off at every inch. So I'm going to mark off here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to do the same thing down at the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I'm going to flip. I'm going to mark them along here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then over here, the same idea. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then what I'm going to end up doing is connecting all these lines. So I want to make sure that I connect these lines going this way. Right, but I also want to make sure that I connect the lines that are going this way too. All right, I'm going to cut this right here, and then when I come back, this will be done. Okay, so I have this whole paper all gridded out now. You can see it's a 1 by 1 inch grid across the entire thing. And then what I really need to do now is just basically do the exact same thing to this image, right? So this is a little off from this, you know, just the slightest little bit, but I think that works out kind of perfectly. And what I'm going to do is to, you know, come in and start to make sure that I'm marking all these off at a 1 inch square. And when I come back, it'll look like that. All right, guys, I'm back again, and now I have my grid set up here on my paper, and I also have my grid set up here on my photograph. And to just kind of give you a little bit of history of how this all comes to be. There's an artist that's alive during the Northern Renaissance in the 1500s by the name of Albrecht Dürer. And Albrecht Dürer comes up with this technique of grid drawing. And here is a picture of Dürer himself that he drew in this print, right? And he's standing in front of this obelisk that he's using to mark his position on this grid. This grid is then see-through, right? It's actually just made out of string on wood. The paper in front of him has been gridded, and then he's looking through that to then draw his model, this woman, right? He also made a lot of other prints as well. Here's one here depicting working in a landscape concept, and here's the gridded paper again, right? Here's the obelisk on its side. Or no, here's the obelisk standing up. Oh, this is a mueller, which is a way of holding your hand still. You have some pen and ink here, and then he's talking about looking out, right, at the cityscape that's over here in order to start a drawing, right? And it's supposed to help with perspective in this case. That's what's being illustrated in this drawing. To give you an idea how far back we're looking at working in this way, here is an image from a book by a man named Solomon from 1675, and the book is called Polygraphus, or The Arts of Drawing, Liming, Painting, Washing, Varnishing, Gilding, Coloring, Dyeing, Beautifying, and Perfuming. And in here, Solomon is describing how to enlarge an image for making I want to say a mural, but I think in this case it was probably a fresco, right? So when we're looking here, you can get an idea that this technique of kind of making these what they called cartoons back then, but and making a drawing or a copy of a drawing through this grid method has gone back quite a long time. Now, I think that this grid method itself became really popularized kind of in the 1940s, but it gives you an idea of how far back this concept goes. You're talking really, it's a Renaissanceian concept. And so, you know, we're just taking that same thing and applying today. So we're going to take this, image here, and then what we're going to do is to start to plot that image onto this paper here, right? So as I kind of look over here, I'll notice that this square is pretty much empty, right? And then if I kind of go to the next square, what I'll do is I'll see that a little bit of her hairline has come through here, right? And I could follow if I wanted to and just keep on kind of going down, realizing that this is got a little bit of space in here, right? And then seeing, oh, it kind of bumps out into this one with some loose hairs that are coming down, right? And I could establish a bit of this outline. You know, sometimes I think there's a bit of a hesitation in the lines when you're working in this methodology, but I also don't think it's the total end of the world. In the beginning, what I really want to find is kind of, you know, a bit of that rough outline still. I'm not really interested in putting down a lot of detail right off the bat. All right, guys, so I got, you know, my main outline kind of going on around the outside of this now. I went in and I, you know, try to find all the little spots where this all kind of lines up, and I've drawn it all in. And some of it's really light, you know, and some of it's significantly darker, and I'm trying to work out, you know, some spots in here that are a little confusing still. But that's all right. That can kind of, I think, get worked out a bit more when we get into doing the next step, which is starting to shade. So what I was looking at here was, you know, some structure of the nose a bit, and trying to figure out or determine, you know, some of this, the shape of the structure. So I've been trying to drawing in these larger shapes in here. They're not necessarily 100% what I'll keep in the end, but what I really want to do is to try to find, you know, some of these larger shapes and how they kind of interact with each other in order to make her face, right? So, you know, I was shading in some of this of the lips, so I kind of feel like this bottom bit maybe got a little off from where it should be. But, you know, I was kind of just coming through here. I was doing the same thing. I was building up these shapes, and I was assigning maybe a couple more values in here than I was to the nose just yet. The nose itself really only has, you know, kind of 2 values, and really what I'm working with is just trying to find the large shapes that would make up the nose, and just place them in. So that way, you know, when it comes around to actually having to refine the nose, I have a bit of an idea of where things are going. So I put in a couple of lines in here just to start to, you know, figure out where this eye is going to be in here. And I just assign this a little bit of shadow too over here as an eye. And I think, you know, this needs some refining still, obviously. Maybe the pupil got a little bit too big from what it should be over there. But I think this is still, you know, in that drawing stage right now. So, you know, we're in that kind of under study stage where we're just trying to, you know, find all of our little lines. I got the lines that make up her shirt coming through here, and the outline of where I think this arm is going to end up, or where this one is. You know, I try to get the hair kind of going along. And then, you know, once I have some of that in there, the next things on here I would really look at is, maybe I need to figure out where this line is coming in for this, for the halftone shadow, right? So then there's this halftone line that's kind of coming along in here a little. Also, obviously, we got to figure out where this bit of the halftone line is. Starting to set up some form to this. So just beyond, looking at just the grids in here, now we want to really start to try to move to, put down the beginnings of our value drawing bit, right? And I don't want to say this is brilliant or anything just yet. It's it's a work in progress. So it's given me some ideas where I could kind of go with some of this, and I just start to kind of push some things around a little bit. I think once you have some things in there that you can start making decisions from, to me, that really simplifies the whole process quite a bit. It's before I have anything I can make decisions from that this can become very confusing, or I don't know where to go next. So before I push my line too far or to some place where I can't come back from, I like to just try to find some shapes, right? And I start to kind of place some shapes in, figure where the shapes kind of fit. And that's really what I want to do, and where I'd like to see you guys kind of go with your drawing after you get that little outline going on. And once this is kind of done up a little bit farther, I'll try to show you guys some more. Okay, guys. So what I did was that same thing I was doing around the nose up in here to begin with, and starting to plan out these shapes. I just kept on taking, right? So I kept on running with it and planned out the shapes for something called the halftone line. And the halftone line is kind of this line that you see along here that kind of demarcates the highlight from the shadow. And it's a bit of an imaginary line, it's not necessarily a line in reality. But what we did was to just kind of go through and start to plan those out across the drawing. I got some for you, like where the hair is in here. I didn't get this one on the lip yet up in here, so we can put that one in. Kind of starts right here. And then there's actually a little bit of space in here that's a highlight that goes around, and then kind of back in again. So we want to make sure that we keep that highlight space that's in there. And then we're coming back around in here, and I'm just trying to find the shapes of the face, right? I'm not doing anything more than that, just looking for shapes, trying to figure out where all the shapes kind of fit together. And that's what we're headed towards here. This is, that moment in the drawing. All right, guys, so I came through and I started erasing out some of my grid lines, and I'm kind of losing some of this shadow after working with it for a while, so I probably really got to go back in, try to darken some things up a bit. I didn't like the eyes when I first started, so you can see that I've been kind of retouching them in here a bit. I'm trying to look at what I have here, and then I'm trying to recreate it over here, obviously. So, I've been playing around with the eyes a little bit, right here at the end, trying to work on, some of these shadows in the face a bit as well, and figure how this all fits together. But I think it's looking pretty good. I mean, I think it's pretty much a likeness at this point in time, other than, just working with some shadows where they need to be put back in it. I had them in there kind of a little bit earlier, And then, you know, as you're working, you kind of smear things around sometimes. So I smeared some things around, and I redrew these lips, and I redrew the eyes. I didn't love them. So, you know, I think that that's important to try to get in there, get some of that going on. But that's, you know, then I have this halftone line that's coming in here. And what I would want to do is to then start to push, you know, my values at this point in time. Now that I have some line in here that's, you know, helping create shadows in here, what I want to do is to actually put real shadows in here instead of having just these kind of, you know, areas that have been demarcated a little bit by hatch marks. What I want to do then is to actually push the shadows out to get some more realism out of this. But that I hopefully kind of helps to give you an idea of you know, what I'm talking about when it comes to working with grid line drawings. Also, you know, you're really getting a concept in here of what this looks like without the grid lines, right? Because you can see where I've erased, you know, 90%. You can still kind of see them in there a little bit, but you know, I erased a whole mess load of the grid line out of there, and what I want to do is, you know, keep it out of there. I don't really want this to be a picture about the grid lines. What I really want this to be is a picture that's, you know, a portrait at the end. So that's what you guys are up to, and hopefully, you know, you're having as good a time messing around with it as I have. And you know, I've been working on this on and off throughout the afternoon here, or I should say throughout the morning and afternoon here, while I'm teaching you guys some classes. So it's not like this all came, you know, in a 2-minute stint, or that that I did this all at once either. I've been kind of working on it a little bit, and then teaching class a little bit, and then coming back when class is over and working on it a little bit, so that, you know, hopefully you've gotten a good idea of kind of the step through process a bit. And we can take this, of course, you know, much farther than this, and get this, you know, looking very realistic by the time we're done. But I think, you know, this is about as far as I'm going to go with this video. And if I keep playing with this, I'll post what it looks like when I'm done. All right, guys, have a good day. I'll see you soon.